Alright, are you ready for spring? Spring is around the corner and I've got a great selection of spring fragrances for you, niche and luxury. They're going to make you smell great. Find out what they are coming right up. Thanks so much for tuning in. It's Sebastian. We're talking about spring fragrances today. Spring fragrances from the world of niche and luxury fragrances. Spring is around the corner, and yes, I'm definitely ready for spring and ready to wear spring fragrances. And as I said, this is a great selection of fragrances that are appropriate for spring. Let's go ahead and get started. We've got fragrances from the house of Frederic Malle first. Synthetic Jungle, or soon Synthetic Nature. So Synthetic Nature is what Synthetic Jungle used to be. It's the same fragrance pretty much, and it's a very green fragrance. It's got some bitter greens like Galbanum. There's some basil here, kind of very herbal and aromatic. There's black currants, a bit of fruitiness. Oakmoss for sure for its mossy earthiness. Patchouli, hyacinth, lily of the valley, almonds, and ylang ylang. For me, the hyacinth and the lily of the valley are perfect spring flowers, and you'll smell like that, plus all the additional notes in here. Very green, very fresh, very bitter, very earthy, and also the really, really beautiful, gorgeous spring floral fragrances of Lily of the Valley and Hyacinth. That is a really, really awesome fragrance, one of my favorite creations of Frederic Malle as of late. Again, was titled or named Synthetic Jungle. Something happened, and it's now called Synthetic Nature. Next up, going to the house of REINE de SABA. We're talking about REINE MAKEDA, this one right here. REINE MAKEDA has become a favorite fragrance of mine. It's a funny, also, back-to-back, we've got two fragrances created by Anne Flippo. This is kind of a very musky, powdery take on white flowers. Although the white flowers are not super potent, it's more about the muskiness that's in here. That's got a very, very sexy trail. It's amazing with the way this fragrance smells. It's got Cashmeran, Ambrette, Mandarin oranges, jasmine, violet leaves, vanilla, rose, orris roots, cedar, and musk. This is a heavenly fragrance. It smells super fantastic. I think, once again, Anne Flippo has created something really, really amazing for this house. If you don't know this house, please check them out. They've got some of the best fragrances. And again, this, along with Divine Temptation, two really amazing fragrances. And then there's also Esprit SABA, which is created by Michelle Almerac, which we featured in our Scent Club Mystery Box. All three of them are really, really amazing fragrances. But this one, it's going to be perfect for spring wear. It's REINE MAKEDA from the house of REINE de SABA. Next, going to the house of ANDREA MAKK. It's COVEN. I've always wanted to have a bottle of ANDREA MAKK's COVEN, and I'm really, really super happy that I have it. It's very earthy and mossy. It has Galbanum. It's quite prominent. There's soil tincture. There's the Oakmoss for sure. Green grass, cedar, cloves, labdanum, whiskey, and vanilla. If you like the idea of very earthy fragrances, also that kind of green and mossy, earthy characteristic that's in there, the bitterness, just kind of minerally metallic also at the same time, which settles to kind of an amber warmth and spicy vanillic touches. Definitely got to get your nose on ANDREA MAKK's COVEN. I think it's one of the best earthy fragrances, earthy green fragrances with that soil tincture. Really awesome, and I think it'll be perfect for spring wear. To me, it smells like spring because, you know, the growth in the earth, kind of that greenness, mossiness, that's definitely captured here with ANDREA MAKK's COVEN. Absolutely love that. Going to go with a few staples here. Next up, it's XERJOFF's ACCENTO Overdose. This one right here. Once again, we've got green notes in this one as well, but it's a fruity take on green notes. There's fruity notes here, green notes, eucalyptus, pine, lily of the valley, jasmine. Really great combination. Really super potent also. I think this is appropriate for like warmer days in the spring. But colder days in the spring is fine too. Because for me, in the warmth, it kind of comes alive. But I feel like you can wear it all year round. But to me, it smells like a fruity spring bloom kind of a thing. So if you like that idea, definitely check out ACCENTO Overdose. Really great fragrance from this house, and it also has a really massive trail, and it garners me compliments. But moving on to another compliment getter for me, I keep recommending this fragrance. It's Sospiro's Dolce Melodia, this one right here. This is super potent, super amazing. It smells like spring. It's a fruity floral combination of notes together with ambery, warm, and woody and musky dry down. I think the trail, once again, is amazing, but it smells like sunshine in a bottle. The color is totally appropriate for this fragrance. I actually, can't get enough of wearing this one. It just is the kind of fragrance that just does it for me. Super amazing fragrance, Sospiro's Dolce Melodia. A perfect fragrance to wear in the springtime when you want some more intensity from a fragrance. But moving on to the house of ORIZA El LEGRAND, it's CHYPRE Mousse. Another earthy green mossy fragrance. It's a CHYPRE style. CHYPRE style fragrances do have a lot of moss or oak moss, and this is kind of very mossy, but also kind of vegetal and herbal, and also soil tincture once again, and there's also mushrooms here. It's angelica, green notes, mint, fennel, oak moss, galbanum, clover, fern, soil tincture, mushrooms, chestnuts. There's a lot of unique things in here. It's one of the most unique fragrances that I'm absolutely addicted to wearing. It smells fantastic. It's an acquired taste. It might be off-putting to some people who are not used to, you know, like uncommon fragrances like this, but once you get used to it, it's such an amazing fragrance. CHYPRE Mousse, one of the best fragrances out there, I think. This next one is a molecular fragrance from the house of Mise en Cire. I think it's perfect to wear in the spring. It's For Your Love, this one right here. And For Your Love is that molecular kind of fragrance that maybe might hint at something like Baccarat Rouge. But this is created by Alberto Morillas for his own brand, Mise en Cire, featuring raspberry, exaltone, cachalox, benzoin, patchouli. But really, really great. Great trail as well. Really, you know, one of the fragrances that I like to wear over and over again. Sometimes if I want Baccarat Rouge and I don't want to make a Baccarat Rouge statement, I would pull for something like this, where it might hint at it a little bit, but then it won't, kind of a thing. And I like that about this one. It's also kind of a grab and go kind of fragrance, which makes it easier to decide on what to wear. So Mise en Cire, For Your Love, wonderful offering to wear in the springtime. So next up, we're going to the house of Atelier Materi with their latest fragrance, Cedra Figalia. This one right here. This is cedar and figs. Sure, it might hint at something like Philosycus, but this one to me smells much more robust and intense and more alive. Like, I feel like the notes are in your face and smelling all natural, where, as I said, it kind of reminds me a little bit of Philosycus. I've been bored of that fragrance. It's been used and overdone. And there's also the overdose of coconut in that fragrance. This one to me smells like an authentic fig tree that you're, you know, sitting under. The warmth is kind of amplifying the smell, and that smell is like transported to your nose, and you're like breathing in the woods and all the greenness and also the fig leaves and all that kind of stuff. It's a really, really wonderful offering from this house. If you're a fig lover, fig tree fragrance lover, you got to get your nose on it. So the notes are cedar, dry woods, fig milk, fig leaves, mate, spinach, basil, bergamot, and Jamaican pepper. So there's all kinds of green notes against the fig leaves and also the fig milk. So the fig milk also gives it a bit of a creaminess. But either way, Atelier Materi Cedra Figalia. Wonderful, wonderful fragrance that is really delicious as a fig fragrance. But next, moving on to the house of Orange Parfums. This is Callus Subtle. This one, Subtil, right here. This was featured in Scent Club Kit number 8. And I know that a lot of you ended up buying bottles because I heard from the retailer and the brand itself. In the end, it's perfect, I think, for spring wear. It's a bit subtle, but it's also very musky and also floral and kind of sexy as well. Actually, not kind of sexy. It's really, really sexy. Features notes of floral notes, white flowers, sugar, amber, moss, and musk. Under there, there's a bit of a molecular thing happening, musky molecular thing happening, like you know, maybe ambroxan, very lightly hinting at something like Baccarat Rouge. But for me, it's a perfect fragrance, more on the floral end, but lightly also under there, there's a bit of fruitiness as well. Really great fragrance from Orange Parfums. What do you guys think of these bottles? There are long, tall bottles that go in here, and it's a 50 ml in here. When you buy the bottle, you get an additional 50 ml bottle, so you replace it. But moving on to another fig fragrance, we're kind of in a green figgy kind of direction here today, it seems. But Born to Stands Out Fig Porn, this one right here. Are you familiar with fig porn? This one's actually fun. It's actually a fruity fig fragrance rather than fig leaves, so it's not necessarily green, I would say, but it is focusing on the fruit of the figs. It's figs, pears, musk, peony, amber, sandalwood, vanilla, Turkish rose, cedarwood, and bergamot. So it's basically a very fresh take on, a very musky, powdery take on the fig fruit with all these additional notes, the peony, amber, sandalwood, vanilla. So it's a bit sweet. It's definitely fruity with the figs and the pears. It's musky and floral, but for sure when it's drying down, it's definitely cedar woody. So it's woody. It's not sandalwood, so it's not necessarily very creamy to me, because I love the idea of sandalwood. And even though the Atelier Materi Cedra Figalia said it was cedarwood as well, but this one's definitely much more dry and powdery, whereas the other one is creamy. We've got the fig milk appearing in that fragrance as well. But both of them are really good. If you hate the greenness of fig leaves, but you like the fruitiness of the fig fruits, definitely try Fig Porn from the house of Born to Stand Out. Next up, going to the house of Parfums Dusita, it's Fleur de Lalita, this one right here. So Fleur de Lalita is one of my favorite fragrances from this house. In fact, it's a great spring floral fragrance and also super musky and sexy. It's got a great trail, not a super potent trail, but it's a really sexy trail. And there's a greenness here with the floral notes, which makes for a really wonderful fragrance to wear. It's white lily, jasmine, exotic flowers, galbanum, rose de mai, magnolia, ambrette seeds, vanilla, and sandalwood. So the galbanum is what creates kind of a greenness running throughout the fragrance, but the ambrette seeds gives it that muskiness, which also adds a bit of fruity booziness in there. But it's a big bouquet of white flowers. So sometimes you get the stems. When you buy a bouquet of flowers, you smell the green leaves and stems, right? So the galbanum in this is kind of creating that kind of a stemmy, green leafy kind of characteristic against the floral notes and of course the musky notes. Really amazing fragrance. This is Parfums Dusita Fleur de Lalita. If you haven't tried it, please do. It's one of my favorite fragrances when it comes to floral fragrances. Next up, going to the house of Loewe, this is Paula Zabiza. This one right here. Are you guys familiar with this one? This is an unusual kind of a beachy fragrance in that it has beachy characteristics or qualities like coconut water, but there's a lot of green notes running in there, citruses and things like that. So there's coconut water for sure. So it's got this coconutty beachiness that comes in here. But it's got galbanum, which is green and bitter, mandarin, driftwood, sandalwood, frangipani, vanilla, patchouli, ambergris. For me, it kind of wears like a Northern California beachy fragrance where we don't have a very tropical idea. Even though there's frangipani here and coconut here, the other notes kind of come forward a lot more for me, and it creates bit more of a cool, airy, green and marine kind of a smell altogether. It's a really great fragrance from Loewe. I think it's an unusual beachy fragrance, and that if you're into the idea of beachy fragrances but you don't like that coconut overdose and tropical floral overdose, you might want to try Paula Zabiza, and I find it to be perfect to wear in the springtime. Next, going to a layering duo, I'm talking about Goldfield & Banks Ingenious Ginger, which is a great fragrance on its own. But I've been testing it out with Molecule 1 plus ginger, and it amplifies the gingeriness and it adds a zing to this fragrance, and it makes for a really, really great wearing duo. It smells fantastic. It also extends the life of the fragrance because it's ISO E Super here with Molecule 1 plus ginger. So it's ISO E Super plus ginger, and the ginger here is the actual spice. It's zingy, spicy, and really like the hot spice kind of a characteristic in there. So the Goldfield & Banks is more ginger flower accord, bergamot, lemon, magnolia, jasmine, rose, mandarin, sandalwood, patchouli, vanilla musk, and cashmeran. So here we've got the floral touches, and it's got this very creamy vibe as well. So when you layer these two together, it makes for a really wonderful ginger fragrance. Not only do you have that kind of ginger floral touch in here, the ginger in Goldfield & Banks has the ginger floral touch. There's a little bit of the actual ginger in there, but for me, I wanted a little more. So that's what the Molecule 1 plus ginger does for Goldfield & Banks Ingenious Ginger. Both are great on their own, but I'm just giving you this really great suggestion for you to try in case you're interested in, you know, boosting up the fragrance and creating something a little bit more original. Moving on to the house of Thomas DeMonico. It's Sol Solgado, this one right here. So Sol Solgado is a linden blossom balm, and it's a great creation from this house. Wonderful offering. The linden blossom, it's mimosa, salt, sandalwood, smoked vanilla, ambergris, skin musks, heliotrope, cotton flower accord. Intense fragrance, by the way, but it is paying tribute to the linden blossom in the kind of a Thomas DeMonico way. And for me, it's the combination of the linden blossom and also the mimosa creates for a bit of almond powderiness here. And if you've never smelled linden blossom in bloom, very intoxicating smell. The mimosa is more faint. You have to get close to it to smell it when it's blooming. It's blooming here in the city already. But there's the salt in here as well, which adds this kind of salty effect, maybe a bit marine, but not necessarily marine, but really a wonderful offering here. If you haven't tried it, please do. It's not raw gold. It's not as beastly as that. It doesn't have patchouli whatsoever, but it's a great spring fragrance, which has potency. So this is Thomas DeMonico's Sol Solgado. Wonderful, wonderful fragrance. Next up, going to the house of Les Eaux Primordiales. It's Rose Super Critique, this one right here. And it's a rose bomb once again, but kind of going into a spicy, smoky, musky direction, into a bit of a Middle East side as well. And it's the kind of fragrance that you can wear in the springtime, cool days, or throughout the year as well, because it's not necessarily like beastly, but in the end it's rose, lots of rose here with vanilla. There's pink pepper, black currants, bergamot, cardamom, and then finally when it's drying down, you got that myrrh, incense, spice tea, and ambroxan, and along the way there's a bit of fruitiness from the raspberry as well. It's a great, great creation. It's not necessarily super fresh. It's got some deep things happening, and of course, as I said, it does go into a little bit of a Middle Eastern direction with the notes that are in here, but it's a super fantastic rose fragrance from the house of Les Eaux Primordiales, and it's basically called Rose Super Critique right there. Let me know if you're familiar with that house. But moving on to the next house, it's Une Nuit Nomade, and it's Jardin de Misfa. I'm absolutely obsessed with this fragrance, one of my favorite fragrances for a long time. And the fragrance is really, really wonderful. It's deep, it's rich, it's a bit tart, it's rosy. There's dates here, there's almonds, there's saffron, and it's got a creamy characteristic. It's a bit honeyed and kind of comes off sweet and watery like that. But in the end, to me, it reminds me a little bit of a Middle Eastern dessert where you would take dates and stuff them with almonds and drizzle it with rose water kind of a thing. It's a super delicious fragrance, and I absolutely love this fragrance. It's Jardin de Misfa. It would work great any time of the year, but it's a great, great suggestion to wear in the springtime. Next, going to the house of Chanel, it's 1957. Yeah, I pulled this one out, and I really do enjoy this fragrance. It's a top 5 Les Exclusives fragrance. Sadly, it's overpriced right now, but I bought it like, I don't know when it was, 300 or 250, I can't remember, for 200 ml. But white musk for top heart base notes, aldehydes, orange blossom, orris, cashmeran, bergamot, pink pepper, coriander, cedar, honey, vanilla. Really, really wonderful. It's very musky, it's airy, it's ethereal, has that kind of effervescence with the aldehydes in here, which is kind of trademark for the Chanel house. And then also the orange blossom comes in and adds that kind of citrus floral notes against all the white musky notes that are in here. But a wonderful offering. Chanel 1957. If you haven't tried it, please do. But it is kind of expensive now, sadly. Moving on to the house of Plume Impression. This is Murmure d'Ete, this one right here. Murmure d'Ete, I recently dropped my bottle and broke it, so I had to get another one. But this is fig pulp. It's very, very figgy. Fig wood, cypress, davana, freesia, cedarwood, sandalwood, and tonka beans. One of the best fig fragrances I've put my nose on. It's super, super fantastic. Created by Quinton Biche. If you haven't caught my video for this house, please go catch it. We rank this pretty high, although they have a new fragrance, Royal Bourbon, that probably is competing with this one, but still, this is one of the best creations for this house, and one that's created by Quinton Biche. He did a great, great job on this one. If you like green figgy fragrances, this is more of the leaves rather than the actual fruit. There's also the fig tree in here, the wood and everything. So it's woody, green, bitter, earthy, but definitely very figgy. So it's Plume Impression, Murmure d'Ete, and it's a wonderful offering from that house. Next up, going to the house of Maison Crivelli, it's Iris Malikan, this one right here. I am putting this one, it is a bit more warm and a bit more powdery, but I think it's still appropriate for springtime wear. It's basically orris butter with leather. There's vanilla, there's galbanum, there's mastic, amber, mimosa, cypress, and musks. Probably one of the best iris fragrances out there. It's powdery, but also buttery creamy. So it's got this very rich texture here. Vanilla sweetness sweetens it up a little bit, so it's got the sweetness of the vanilla. The leather is a nice leather, not really intense animalic, just a nice blend, and it kind of contributes and creates a kind of a suede leather butteriness against the orris butter. And it's the galbanum in here that creates for a very interesting wear. And the galbanum comes in and gives it that kind of green tinge to the fragrance. A really, really amazing fragrance. It's Iris Malikan from the house of Maison Crivelli. And then the last fragrance I'm talking about today is Ormonde Jane's Evernia. You guys familiar with Evernia? Evernia, basically Oakmoss or moss. It's a wonderful fragrance. This to me reminds me of Christmas, but a mossy Christmas, if that makes sense. So there's a kind of a pine tree-like effect in here. More like pine resin. If you've ever touched them and pick them off, the sticky resins that are on there, you get a bit of the pine, a bit of the sweetness. That's what it kind of reminds me of. But it's Oakmoss, pink pepper, orris root, cashmeran, rose, and pepper. Really, really wonderful fragrance. If you don't know this one, do check it out, especially if you like oak mossy fragrances. That might kind of go into a little bit of a pine smell. Really awesome. And I think it's an appropriate fragrance for springtime wear, because it does have that kind of greenness a little bit, mossiness, spicy pepperiness, and also the aromatic touches in here. So that's Avernia from the house of Ormonjane, and that's the last fragrance for you guys. Let me know your thoughts on these fragrances. These are my niche and luxury spring fragrance options, but let me know if you've tested them out or if you're curious to check them out, and do let me know which spring fragrances you're going to be wearing. Put a comment down below so I can find out. I do have one bonus option as well. Stick around for that. But other than that, guys, if you have any questions or comments, please list below. Please like this video, please share it, follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and I'll be back with more videos very soon. Have a good one. Goodbye. So last but not least, I wanted to highlight this fragrance. It's a great spring fragrance, but the status of this fragrance is kind of up in the air. A lot of retailers and the distributor are saying it's discontinued, but there are some stock here on their own website. This is Wilhelm Parfumerie's A Lilac a Day, this one right here. It's a very springtime blossom kind of a fragrance. It's focusing on the lilac, so it's very lilac forward, but it's lots of lilac with freesia. There's jasmine, there's galbanum, black amber, and Turkish rose. To me, it smells like a big bouquet of lilacs, very, very fragrant, a bit baking under the sun, whatever warmth there is in the springtime when the lilacs bloom. But if you like the idea of lilac spring flowers, very fresh, very kind of powdery as well, and then also lilacs do have a bit of a almondy after smell, so there's that in here as well, along with all the other notes. It's a fantastic fragrance. It's sad it's discontinued, that's the rumor, but again, retailers and also distributor are saying it is, but there is some stock on the Wilhelm Parfumerie website. So do we know what the status is? I don't know. Hopefully it'll still be around, but I am recommending it as a bonus option. A Lilac a Day from the house of Wilhelm Parfumerie is the bonus option for you guys today. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.